here I am at the end of round 1, knitting 1 round right after cast on, and we are starting short rows. We want to do short rows to raise the back neck, to make the back higher and the front to sit lower, to have a deeper neck at the front. And typically you can add short rows in one block, so we would work to an incomplete row in both directions, back and forth, and moving a little bit further away with every row. So you add like a half moon shape that is the highest here at the center of back where our beginning of round is, and after completing the short rows we just return to work back in the round, and the front is shorter as a result. But because we're using color changing yarn, I am afraid of having a sudden color change at the front where the short rows finish, because we'll be using a lot of that yarn here at the back for the short rows, and then when we return back in the round, the border between the colors would be noticeable. So what we'll do instead is we'll scatter the short rows in between a lot of full rounds. So we'll do a short row here and there between the increase rounds, and the first short row is just 20 stitches away from the beginning of round, and you can use whatever short row method you like. I love the look of Japanese short rows, so I will be demoing that short row method here. Right, so 1 time, 2 times 3, 5 more stitches for me. Each size has their own number specified in the pattern, so you check there what you need to do. For Japanese short row, we need to trap that yarn with either a locking stitch marker, or I love using bobby pins here, very easy to get on, and let it dangle there. Slip the first stitch, and we'll work the exact distance away. Oh, this cable's making noise. The same distance away from the beginning of round, but in the opposite direction. So obviously here I need to purl to have that stockinette look on the right side. Slip the marker, and we work again 20 stitches for my size in the other direction. I am here exactly 20 stitches away from the beginning of round, and I trap the yarn once again before turning and working backwards. So you can see those bobby pins or locking stitch markers are dangling on the wrong side. And now I'm ready to knit to beginning of round. I should slip the first stitches. And then we'll knit 1 round in which we will conceal these turns. Right, so I'm beginning that round in which we will conceal the turns, and I do that by working to the turning point all the way to where I turned, and I use that bobby pin. I'll just place the yarn in front for now. Use the bobby pin or locking stitch marker to pull until a loop forms, and I can place that as a new stitch here on the left hand needle. I'll bring the yarn to back, and I will knit these two together, and that way you cannot see the turn at all. You can see that this side of the turn is longer, this is shorter, but there's no holes or anything like that. So I will knit all the way to 1 stitch before the other turn, and we'll look at how to conceal the turn when you're approaching from the shorter direction. Here I am 1 stitch before the turn on this other side. The reason why I had to stop one stitch before the turn is because to conceal the gap on this side, we used a stitch that is the first stitch on the shorter side. So the first stitch on the shorter side will be, when approaching from this direction, will be just one stitch before the turn. And we used a method, a decrease method that leans to the right. So from shorter side to the longer side, that means on this side we need to use a decrease method that leans to the left. So in our case it would be an SSK, and SSK is slip knitwise, and knit through the back loop. So I just slipped this first stitch knitwise, and it's kind of very hard to place this loop here on the needle. It's very tight, so we're not even going to do that. Instead of doing the classical SSK, we'll do an alternative where we slip that first knitwise and then knit through this loop, imagining that it's on some needle, and I'm stretching it out with the help of the bobby pins so I could pull the strand of yarn through it, and I get that new stitch already on my right hand needle. And what I need to do is pass that first slip stitch over, and we get a decrease that's leaning towards the taller side, and you can remove the bobby pin because we won't no longer need it. And voila, the gap is closed. I suggest that here you kind of have to tug on the yarn right after working that decrease, otherwise any slack will stretch the stitch out and will make it appear like a disturbance in the fabric. So a little tug is necessary here, and again we get a very seamless transition to the longer side. And yeah, whenever you see a short row, these will be the steps that you need to take. And next we'll be attacking increases.